Hey everybody, it's Peter here on YouTube. I'm the number's 04petesake.stitch, and over on Instagram I'm 04petesake.fl. Just welcome back. We're on Flosstube number 2. Um, just want to thank everybody for the wonderful comments and the warm welcome to the Flosstube community. We just had Christmas and the New Year, so I had a great time. Got a lot of stitching done, and looking forward to showing y'all what I did. I'm going to start with addressing one of the comments that was most common, which was what's on the wall behind me. So I'll quickly go through everything that's up there, and then I'm going to show you my finishes, my works in progresses, and then some of the Christmas gifts that I received. So let's start looking at some of my finished framework behind me. So the first piece that I'm going to show you is from the upper left-hand corner of the screen, and so that piece is the Scarlett House and Heartstring Samplery's Berry Bowl Sampler. And all of my degrees are in horticulture. And so when the berry bowls were first released, I knew that I needed to have it on my wall. I did add 2 sets of initials. So there's 4 initials, me and my siblings. And one of the disappointing things about this piece, and it's not disappointing at all, but it is for me a little bit, is that it's set up so that way it's 2 different pieces of fabric, and I couldn't get my hands on the recommended colors, and so I had to substitute. These 2 linens are let's see, Picture This plus Heartland and Regency. And I could have done, so I sat there in Brick City cross stitch for quite a while trying to figure out if I wanted to do Heartland and Regency or do Legacy and Fawn. And the other options were darker. And so I chose the 2 lighter fabrics of Regency and Heartland. And because I chose the lighter colors, that difference of the 2 linens sewn up the center is not as noticeable as what it could have been if I had chosen 2 linens that were darker in color. This was the first time that I had done 2 linens sewn together, and the way I did it was I laid the 2 on top of each other and then hand stitched going up, and then I pulled it apart to see if it would hold, and there was still a little bit of pull just because I knew that with framing it would be taut, and so I had to come back in the opposite direction but not in the same holes. So that was something that was an important lesson that I learned for later pieces. This was also one of the first pieces where I decided that I would try to change things around. And so you can see right here, right there, that bird, I changed it so that way it would look like a duck. So it looks like a male mallard with a green head and a ring neck. So that was one of my first attempts at changing things from the pattern. And then underneath the Berry Bowl sampler is the Floral Motif sampler. Because if you've got berries on the wall, you also need to have flowers. And so this is Floral Motif Sampler by Scarlett House. It is stitched on Seraphim fabric, prairie grass, with most of the overdyed cottons. If the current dye lot was like a little too yellow or a little too brown, then I would change to something that was a little bit more green, but just simple substitutions like that but overall it was the recommended colors. Again, because I did it on the berry bowls, I also decided to change some of the birds on this piece. So here on this flower, I changed it so that way it looks more like a blue jay. And then over here is what looks like a cardinal. And so not only did I change the colors, but I also added a single 1/1 stitch on the top of the head to form the crest. So that is Floral Motif Sampler by Scarlett House. Yeah, it's one of my favorites. I will also, at this time, I'll also show you that when I'm looking at the backs of these framed pieces tonight, it's because I always put a label on the back of all of my pieces, and this is just a mailing label, just something that you can get from Office Depot or somewhere online. Just a simple 3x4 mailing label, and then I just print them out when they're needed. And then there's several places online that offer very similar things to this, but they're a little bit more fancy. So I looked at all of those examples for the information that they provided, and then I just made my own because it's the back of the piece, so no one's going to see a boring white label. So just to save a little bit of money using a mailing label. So then on the upper right hand of the screen is this is Lucy Beam's Love and Stitches, and the piece is called Though He Seemeth Sleeping. And this is using Fox and Rabbit Up in the Attic 40 count. This is a really interesting piece because the designer gives a thread list for Gentle Arts, Weeks Dye Works, Classic Color Works, as well as DMC. And a lot of these, except for the border, a lot of the colors are used just in small motifs. So this is an excellent piece to stitch from stash, just because you're given all of the conversions to really get it done quick. So that's a great quote, great little poem there about Christ in the boat keeping. So another great piece. And then underneath, Though He Seemeth, is a collection of 4 different patterns. So these are Plum Street samplers. The top 2 are summer salt boxes, and then the autumn salt boxes. And then I charted my own 1/1 alphabet. And then after the 1/1 alphabet is the winter salt boxes. And then finally on the bottom are the summer salt boxes. So when you go to purchase these patterns, when you buy spring salt boxes, you will purchase both salt box 1 and Saltbox 2 are in the same package. So there was a Sal with Sweetwater Stitcher and New Hampshire Stitcher last year where they were going to stitch one of these with each one of the equinoxes. So they showed a lot of these last year. I do have the alphabet that I can share with folks. I have both a 1/1 and a over 2 pattern for that middle alphabet. Obviously the over 2 is going to be twice as tall, but it's fun. If you watch Curious Crafters, they just finished, oh shoot, who finished it? I'm sorry, I forget who. Carolyn. Carolyn finished this one, and I had commented that it looks like a uh, a bourbon rick house, which is when you go visit the bourbon region of Kentucky, you'll see these grayish buildings all over the area. And what they do is they put the bourbon casks in the bottom, and then every year they move the casks up. And because of the warmer temperatures in the top of the building, the amount of exchange of the alcohol in and out of the barrels during the seasons, because it's not climate controlled. So with the changing of the seasons, the amount that it moves in and out changes. So that's where you get bourbon flavor from. Didn't expect that on Flosstube, did you? So yeah, so this is one that is a lot of fun. My friend Anne, she did all 8 without the alphabet in the middle. So, oh, sorry, I didn't tell you. So, Curious Crafters, Carolyn, she's doing it like the charted, where she's making them look like Polaroids, and then she's got a little stand that she's putting them in. So it's been really fun to watch her stitch each one of these each season. So that's Curious Crafters on Instagram, or Curious Crafters on Flosstube. All right, so that was the 4 pieces in the corners of my screen. But what a lot of people, what had a lot of attention, and it's because it is one of the most amazing pieces that I have in my collection, is this is Quaker Virtues, and it is charted by ByGone stitches. I stitched this on 36 count Zweigart light mocha, and it's 1/2. And the blue floss is Weeks Dye Works blue suede, and then the words and the alphabets are stitched with DMC 905. And so this is just it was so much fun to stitch. It was one of the first things that I stitched on when I first came back to cross stitch in 2020 during the pandemic. I absolutely love Quakers just because I'm an analytical mind, so I like the symmetry and just the peacefulness that comes from Quaker motifs. So I took this into my framer, and he gave me a quote on the frame, and then he's like, "Oh, do you want a mat to emphasize the shape of the octagon?" And I said, "No, I want the frame to be octagon shaped." And so he took a deep sigh, and he's like, "Well, then it's going to take longer because I can't trust my employees to do that. I have to do it myself." So, which is fine. So it took an extra 2 weeks. I don't care because it is an awesome frame. Not only are the five words: integrity, simplicity, community, equality, and harmony are the 5 like hallmarks, or the 5 values of Quaker community. So, and there's a big explanation about all of it in the pattern that I won't go into tonight. But that's Quaker Virtues by ByGone Stitches, or by ByGone Stitches. Yep. Those are my previous finishes, and thanks to everybody who asked what was behind me, because I do like to show them off. This is my sampler wall in my stitch room, so I get to see them all the time, and it just is fun to have them. So those are my previous finishes, and so the finishes since my last Flosstube, I've got 2 of them, and the first one was Anne Morison by Hands Across the Sea. And this was from Traditional Stitches, 20th anniversary stitch along. And so the chart was limited edition and is no longer available. And one of the homespun needlework Facebook group, they said, what is your unicorn chart? And a unicorn chart is one that is hard to find because the designer may no longer be designing, or like this one, it was limited edition. So uh, thankfully, somebody in the group said, yeah, you can borrow mine. And so I was able to finally have it stitched in on my wall. This is, again, Ann Morison by Hands Across the Sea. I stitched it on 45 count legacy linen jersey cream. And I did change parts of it. So you can see Anne stitched it with some family names on either side of the heart in eyelets. And I stitched my paternal grandmother and my maternal grandmother's initials in the eyelets, and then stitched their children's names, or children's initials underneath them. And then at the bottom, instead of using Ann Morison, I stitched Mother's Love and then my last name. I did spend a long time trying to figure out if I should say Mother's Love or do A Mother's Love. And if I was going to do A Mother's Love, I was going to do the letter A as eyelets. And by the time I got to the bottom, I'm like, I don't want to spend time on eyelets. Eyelets aren't difficult, they're just time consuming. So, but I thought, there's always a long debate about whether you should use the original stitcher's initials or personalize it. And since this was my unicorn chart, I knew I wanted to make it special, even more special, and I put family names on it. The other thing that was really funny is that my aunt, she follows me on Instagram, and when I posted this finish, she told me that it was an absolutely beautiful piece. And so I messaged her and I said that I was going to comment that of course she thought it was beautiful. It's got her initials on it. And she responded back with, that is so funny. I was going to make a similar comment, but didn't think people would make the connection between her being my aunt and being on the piece. And so that was just a fun piece of humor between us. So yeah, so Ann Morison. I'll probably have to get it framed soon, just because those reds, and there's 4 different colors of pinks, and it just was so much fun to stitch on. So I did originally plan to have Teresa Koget's Remember Me as my New Year's start. But I just got to New Year's Day and I'm like, okay, I am borrowing a chart, so I need to get it back. And so I just went back to stitching on that so that way I could return the chart. And I realized that it felt really good to be able to mark off a work in progress or a whip as finished. So I keep all of my works in progress in an Excel spreadsheet, and so to be able to put that little check mark beside it felt really good. And so when I finished Ann Morison, it's like, I'm not going to do Remember Me, I'm going to do another work in progress. And so what I chose was my birthday start that I did with Linda. The birthday start that I did with StitchyLinda. And so this is the drawn thread, and it is called Simply Winter. It's 4 different patterns, and it's called Simply Winter, Simply Spring, Simply Summer, and Simply Autumn. And so the way that they've got it, so this is the back page of the pattern, And you can see that with all of them, it's the house and then an alphabet and then a house and an alphabet. And then that's how they've got all four design together. And so I did not, the alphabets don't have different fonts. And so I didn't want to do four alphabets of the exact same font. So both Linda and I removed the alphabets and stitched just the house and the name of the season. So it did require some changes because like in winter, the alphabet went along the top, and so we had to add a house or add a floor. And then in spring, the alphabet was like right here, so you had to lengthen the vine. There was a part of the alphabet right here, and I put my initials, and Linda put in a set of B's, and there was no problem with Autumn. But this was when I do pieces like this or like the Plum Street seasons, I enter each one of these as separate patterns. So when I finished this, I was able to mark 3 patterns or 3 works in progresses as finished. So it felt really good to click 3 boxes. It only took two days, just because all I had to do was like the leaves and the roof and the beescape and then the pink flowers that are satin stitch. I saved all of the satin stitch for the end, so that's all I had to do. So that's 3 more works in progresses finished. So that felt really good. So those are my 2 finishes that I finished since the last Flosstube. So now I'll show you the new start that I had for Christmas. Each Christmas I start a new Blackbird Designs sampler. It's just what I do. So this year my Christmas start, and I don't start on Christmas Day. I start on Christmas break just because I've got the time off work, so I'm going to use every minute of time off that I have. So to get more done on a Christmas start, I start, let's see, so I started this the Saturday before Christmas. So that gave me an extra 3 or 4 days. But my Christmas break start is a little bit of spring. I just really wanted to do all of that bright red. And so that's the pattern, and this is how far I got between, I guess it was like December 20th, 21st, somewhere in there. And then I stitched on this to the 31st before I picked up Ann Morison on the 1st. So one of the questions that I received was, where do I start? And so I always start up here in the left-hand corner. I'm an English speaker, and in English, when I write, it's in English, so I go left to right. And so my mind, when I'm stitching, it follows a very similar pattern to using cursive. I have tried to go right to left, and it's too confusing for me. So that's why I always do my words left to right. And then when I get into a motif, like sometimes I'll do a motif from the right side, but I always start in the upper left. And then I go top down, just because when I do my X's, I always start from the lower left, and then I go to the upper right, and then I come up through the lower right and go down through the lower left. So left, upper right. And so when I go down, it's easier to just pull the full length down to the lower left rather than trying to figure out how, because I'm starting in that upper left-hand corner, which is also the place where my needle is going to come through for the first step of the next stitch. It just is easier just to go down than it is to go up. So you always, you know, I can always like take the floss to the left or the right, but then you always get that little bit of a turn in the thread, which no one sees except for me when I'm under my light, but it's enough to bother me. So down, top and down, left to right. I use a spring hoop. Just that's what the cheapest thing. So that's what I use. And when I came back to cross stitch in 2020, I went out and bought a spring hoop, and I have used the exact same hoop for everything you've seen. So it's a good hoop, good cheap plastic hoop. So yeah, so this is a little bit of spring. It is on Seraphim fabric, Thespi 40 count, and I am using the over dyed cottons. Now, what I will say is that once again, just dye lot things is like, for example, um, the all of this red. The called for is Gentle Arts Old Red Paint, and so you can see that there's two of them, and one of them is a really dark red, and one is a lighter color red, and I chose the darker just because I wanted that bright red. So that's my red. Is I chose a darker red for the dye lot. And Blackbird Designs, they often use gray, Weeks Dye Works gray, as like a blue, because like sometimes you can get a dye lot of Weeks Dye Works gray that is more of a muted gray. And so this is the gray, the current dye lot of Weeks Dye Works gray. But I wanted, because I chose that darker, brighter red, I also wanted to use a slightly brighter blue. So for my blue, I am using the Classic Colorworks Old Money. And Blackbird Designs uses Old Money in several of their charts as well. So that's why I went for Old Money, because I knew that it would go well. It's worked in all my other Blackbirds, so why not again? So that's a little bit of spraying by Blackbirds. After I had finished the Simply Autumn and Simply Summer, I really enjoyed, like I said, I really enjoyed checking that off my list, and so I decided that I would pull out in other work in progress, and this one is one that I haven't shown on my own Flosstube, but I did show it with Linda or with Chrissy, Finally a Farm Girl, and Linda on their Flosstube. And this is Ragamuffin 2 by Shakespeare's Peddler. And the problem with this picture is that there's a lot of places, like there's a swan right there, and there's some flowers and some birds that are in white floss. And so it's difficult to see in this pattern. But Country Sampler has a model of it. And when I saw the model, it's like, okay, I really need to have that on my wall. So I was there for visiting my parents, and so we together purchased all of the materials to kit it up. This is a big piece. So this is R&R Reproduction Fabric Barb's Blend 40 count, which is not the recommended linen, and I can't remember what the recommended is. I'll have it for next time. Using the overdyed cottons, and you can see, like my swan, I'm using Mariner's Compass, which is a gray color, just so that way you can see the white. And like these birds are also stitched in the Mariner's white, and so you didn't see that on the cover art. So you get a really pretty definition now on this Barb's Blend. This chart is 9 pages. So it's 3 pages wide, 3 pages tall. And so all of the alphabets are pages 1 through 3. And then the bottom of page 4 is about 5 stitches below this rose. So I've got page 4 almost finished. There's one motif right here that I need to do, and then I'll have page 4 finished. I'll be working on this for the rest of January, and then February 1st is when I'm going to start Teresa Kogut's Remember Me finally. So this is what's really interesting is that when I pulled this out again on Monday or 2 nights ago, I pulled it out and I got to look at this alphabet again. And these are once again Algerian islets. But Anne Morison is 16 legs, or 16 leg Algerian islets, and these are 8. And it's like, well, I should have done 16, just because it's one's not better than the other. It's just with the 8 legs, you get to see more of the technique than you can with the 16 leg, because your floss is just crammed in there. So, but with this is overdyed cottons on 40 count, and so you still get really nice coverage. 1/1. So that's Ragamuffin 2 by Shakespeare's Peddler. During Christmas break, I got quite a few things that were stitching related as gifts. So now I'll show you what I picked up. And so I got some my parents' LNS, or local needlework shop, is Country Sampler. So we went to Country Sampler and I bought some fabrics for the backing of smalls. So just some nice general colors. I also bought a piece of fabric. I bought this blue and gray floral pattern back at Summer Stitch Camp. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I just thought it was really funny, or really fun and beautiful pattern. So when I was there again for Christmas, I went ahead and bought a matching or complementary blue fabric, and then this white fabric, so that way I could make it into my own project bag. So, and then the white fabric on the inside. I'm trying to learn more about quilt piecing, and so this is a disappearing 9 patch. So I just don't get it. I really don't. With trying to match up corners, and even though my ironing board is 3 feet away from my sewing machine, I still end up sewing the wrong seam. So I had to rip it out like 3 or 4 times, and I'm like, project bags is enough. I'm never going to do anything more. So, but it's fun to have a really pretty project bag that I made. I don't need to start buying them. I also bought some trims, just to have on hand for finishing in the new year. And then I also bought Blackbird Designs in Friendship's Way. This has the sampler that like lots of folks have stitched, and so it's the 1861 antique sampler. So, oops, wrong way. So there's that sampler. It's just the soft pinks and blues, and whenever I see it posted, it's like, well, that's gorgeous. The other great thing about this book is that it contains like 3 or 4 strawberries, and each strawberry has a different alphabet to put somebody's initials on. So I also got 3 more alphabets, which is always really handy to have. And then from Brick City Cross Stitch, I was given some cash for Christmas, so I ended up buying Hello America by Teresa Kogut. And so sometime this year I would like to stitch. There's the large sampler that she had from Primitive Gatherings retreat like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. So being able to do that this year is at the top of my list. And then there's also a small. So So there's a small for you and me, which is a little Uncle Sam. And I knew that when Teresa released Hello America, I knew it was going to be on my Christmas list for gift ideas. And so I also purchased the Primitive Needle and or Punch Needle and Primitive Stitcher magazine, and this was the 2024 summer issue. And so Teresa Kogut in this magazine has the Miss Liberty, and Miss Liberty and the gentleman, they use the exact same floss and have some of the similar motifs. So having the two of them side by side, and they're small because they are, I can't see a stitch count right now, but on 40 count it's 7.5 by 10 inches. So it'll go pretty quick. So having the two of them together will be fun. So that's my Christmas gift, and that's the only haul I have. So again, thanks to everybody who commented on my first Flosstube and the encouragement to do another one. It's always fun to share and talk with folks. So I'll see you again in February. Hopefully I'll have some more done on Ragamuffin 2 and a really good start on Remember Me. So happy stitching, y'all.